Hello and welcome to this very special Galt House Kentucky Derby preview show. In the company of the In the Money Media team, we have Peter Fornatali and we also have JK, Jonathan Kinchin, and we are going to be running through all things Kentucky Derby. We're going to be doing it by basically basing our conversation in the next hour or so around 20 questions that various viewers, listeners, etc., fans of the show have sent in. And that's how we're going to structure this particular Kentucky Derby preview show. I should just say that, of course, we've done a proper rundown of all things Oaks and Derby. You can find that on the In the Money Media YouTube page, all their content available to you out there. But for now, let's get stuck straight in. Before we get to the 20 questions, that's what we're going to be doing here, 20 questions. Peter, let's start with you. How are you looking forward to this weekend?
As I said on a show today, if you're somebody who loves horse racing, you're down here in Louisville. We're right on the eve of two of the best days in racing. If this doesn't get your fire burning, your wood is wet. This is what it's all about. I am pumped, Vanessa, and I'm very excited to be with you here at the historic Galt House in downtown Louisville, and very happy that we have this as sort of a value add for our In the Money Plus customers. You know, as you mentioned, we have a ton of free stuff, whether you go to inthemoneypodcast.com or our YouTube channel, but our best, most supportive people join us on the In the Money Plus side, and they're the ones who filled in the questions. Folks curious about that, check it out, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus.
This is a team who have literally been building up to this next couple of days since, what would you say, January? JK, is that fair?
No, I mean, I think probably since last May.
May last year.
Yeah,
May the
Sunday,
7th,
first Sunday
7th?
in May.
Yeah, May the 7th last year. Yeah. So there's been a pretty big build up to this, and now we're on the eve of a couple of the best days racing the US scene has to offer. So should we get stuck straight in?
I think
we
we
kick
should.
Straight off?
Yeah, let's do
20
it.
questions to get through. And of course, this is all about like based how you're going to bet the next couple of days, what you're going to do, how you're going to play it, how you're going to stake. We're going to get stuck into some of the real deep detail here. So let's kick straight off. Question 1. JK, this is going to come your way. I struggle handicapping optional claiming races. There's several over the weekend. How do you approach them? From Jeff. Take it away.
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. I think that you have to identify what horses are actually in for sale. So you have to read the conditions, and you have to read the conditions and really like say them slow. Non-winners of blah 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 or claiming price 80,000. So then you look to see who's in for 80, and you recognize that they didn't meet the condition to get in normally. They had to be in for sale. It's really as simple as that. And there's really not a whole lot to make out of it because it's meant to be an equalizer, right? Like if a horse has won one race and they show up in this race, or they've won 2 races, they're in for 80. It's meant to be an equalizer. I would just treat it like any other race. You don't really struggle with it. You think you struggle with it.
I'll piggyback the idea that I would say, and tell me if you agree, that it can often be an advantage for that horse that's in for the tag that doesn't meet those other conditions because they might have a little bit more of a resume. But look, as important as going through the conditions is, like Jonathan says, and trying to figure out, you know, who's in the race and why, none of that is ever going to supplant what we call the fundamentals of handicapping or form study. And those are, for me, and you tell me, you know, if either you guys disagree, but speed figures for me have primacy. I'm always looking at those. The form of the horse, who they've been running against is part of it. What kind of condition they're in. Are they ready to run their best race today? Class. How good is the company this horse has been running against? What level are they fundamentally meant to compete at? If those are the things I'm looking at the most, and then other things are all going to be secondary, including something like the conditions. You know, if there's a horse I like for those fundamental reasons, the rest of it doesn't matter. But I do think some people really do specialize in that condition handicapping. It's not really my bag. I'm more of a fundamentals guy, but I do think there's something to be said for what you said about reading and
the hard part about it is, and then I don't want to, like, you know, it's Derby. We don't want to harp on this too much, but I think that, like, if you start trying to play the game of why is this horse entered for 80, why is he in this spot, there's so many things that happen behind the scenes in terms of races not going. So horses were meant to go in a stake, or they didn't get in, so they end up here. If you play that game, very similar to if you play the jockey musical chairs game. You're likely going to lose because there's just too much information that you don't know. So I just don't try to figure it out, because if you try to figure it out, it's going to lead you down the same path as if you don't know. You know what I mean?
Okay. I also want to know why you've just been given a bottle of tequila. This is why we do this preview show. Let me tell
You
you.
want the honest answer?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm dragging you in with me though. It's because they have a bunch of bourbon over there, and I thought to myself, since we had 4 margaritas today, I didn't want to switch to bourbon. So I asked our friend Lance if he had any tequila, and he obliged with tequila.
Good time, lads. Yeah.
Honest answer.
That's
yeah,
honest.
that is an honest answer.
Yeah.
I do regret asking the question, but my parents taught me back home in England, never ask a question you don't want to hear the answer to. So that was a mistake.
It's your fault.
Yeah, it is my fault. Right, on we go. Next question, guys. Next question. Focus in. What multi-race wagers are you most looking forward to this weekend? Pete, let's start with you.
There's so many interesting bets they've come up with. Typically multi-race sequences. You can look carefully at your wagering menu and see all of them. But there's all turf wagers. There's an all dirt pick 4 that I think is pretty cool. A bunch of cross day wagers. So the right answer generally to how you should pick these, we gave this answer out at a Breeders' Cup 2 years ago, and people still tell me it was some of the best advice we've given. The idea is you look at all the wagers on the 2 days, if you're somebody who studies the form, and you go and you give sort of a grade to your interest in the race, from A, I can't wait to bet this race, I have a strong opinion, to F, I wouldn't touch this race with a 10-foot pole. Then you sort of correlate where your strong opinions are with those 2-day type wagers, and those, even within the day, this might help you pick a pick 3 on a day instead of a double, or whatever the bet is. It's just a way to help you focus and pick your best opinion. For me, one bet I'm very interested in, having poked around a little bit with the early wagering, something very interesting that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, the fact that there's actually money for a couple of days now being bet on these races. A lot can change between now and tomorrow, let alone Saturday. But it does give you a little bit of an indication of where money is going. One thing I really like about the daily double bets, as opposed to 3-leg exotics, are price discovery. You can get a better idea of what a bet is going to pay. With that in mind, I feel like the Oaks Derby double is potentially going to be an opportunity. The Oaks, the public seems like it's going to bet as a pretty open race where a lot of things could happen. The Derby, we'll get to our opinion on the Derby, but it's no secret we're both team fierceness. I think you're going to be able to get a better price on fierceness in the Kentucky Derby by trying to leverage that opinion instead of doing what a lot of people are doing, play all 5 runners in the Oaks. If you can pick your 1 or 2 in the Oaks and play them to fierceness, I think maybe you can get an edge.
Well, come on, you might as well give away your 1 and 2 now. Like we've got questions coming up, but get into it.
Sure. For me, I feel like, and we talked about this on the show last night, our final answer show, where we rattle through picks on all the stakes. And you can find that on the YouTube channel or the In the Money podcast feed. But Ways and Means and Just FYI, those are the 2 I'm the most interested in the Oaks. I'm going to play those 2 to fierceness. I'll take a look again as we get closer to the Oaks tomorrow and make sure the prices haven't changed. But I mean, looking at it before, it was something a little wild, like 13-1 or 15-1 for those kind of doubles, because people were so spready. I think that's a great opportunity to bet these 2 fillies I love on Friday with the Colt I love on Saturday. That's my thought.
JK, this question is about multi-race wagers.
Yeah,
I'm obviously from England.
Yeah, you don't have.
We have no. Hang on a minute.
My fault.
Don't be judging me. We have a classic this weekend. We have a very short price horse, City of Troy, for Team Coolmore.
We've heard of them.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Well done, you. What about City of Troy, fierceness, just FYI, treble?
Yeah, you got to do that manually, don't you? Can't. There's no option in doing, but I like it.
Yeah, there'll be an option.
Yeah, I like justify. I mean, I like Ways and Means too. But I a lot of the times these questions like this, I understand where they come from, but they're problematic. We'll get into another one later, not so much this one, but the sequence I'm the most excited about is the one that follows my opinion, which I would encourage you at home. If there's something that you like, then your wager should be different than mine, right? Like tomorrow, I'm excited about the pick six. We'll see what happens with the weather because I love the turf sprinter overcharged. That's the first leg. And so if I can single in the first leg, that's an opportunity that I like to be able to, if I get beat, then I can come back in the pick five. If I hit it, then I'm cooking with gas. So, and I like the pick six on both days just because I feel like there's a lot of dead money in the pick six, especially on these big days. And I have a single in the Derby. So having a single in the Derby always makes the pick six a very bettable race because you can pick up a lot of pieces there.
Okay. Let's roll on then. Bit of a tips question coming up. JK, I'll come to you first there. Obviously, we did, as Peter's just said, the final answer show yesterday. But what are your best bets for the undercard on Oaks and Derby Day?
Yeah,
Rob.
So race six tomorrow. I love the two overcharged. I mean, let's see what happens if they're off the grass or not. If they run on the grass and she runs, she won't lose.
I think they'll be on though,
right?
right?
Yeah,
it would be a big upset.
Yeah, but yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Right.
It's like a reverse mush he's doing. He's saying it might come
that
off, so it won't. Yeah.
And then on Saturday, I love in the Distaff Mile. I think Chad Brown's horse, the 11, Co-Pice or Co-Piece or whatever we're calling there. I think that horse is going to be tough. Or Coppice.
Yeah. Right.
That horse is going to be tough. And then in the 8th, Vlahos, I like a ton. I'm going to single a ton through that horse. And then the American Turf, race 9. I don't love a horse in there. I'm going to use the 4 who's 15-1, but I think that race is so wide open and so chaotic that there's likely to be a big price in the 9th, the American Turf. And then I've hinted at it already, but I absolutely love fierceness. And that's coming from someone who I think I singled American Pharaoh, and this is my biggest score. I made like $150,000 that day. And I singled American Pharaoh. I love fierceness significantly more than I loved American Pharaoh. And I also played in a contest one time where I bet like $30,000. It's a contest, but I bet $30,000 on Justify. And I like fierceness more than I like both of those horses.
And again, you go into great detail in terms of the numbers behind what you're saying there in our final answer show. We won't do that right now, but obviously that can be found on the YouTube channel. Back to the question in terms of the undercard bets away from the Oaks and the Derby. Who do you want to throw into the mix?
I definitely will give a few horses, but I do want to say, Jonathan, if you are playing in the contest, you mentioned Justify. If you are playing in the contest on Saturday that you can play through expressbet.com/tournaments, make sure you do all your minimums so you don't get disqualified again.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There you go.
That's a good point.
There you go. He's here to look after you. He's here to look after you.
You've seen that Dave Chappelle bit with Rick James where he says cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Yes.
That wasn't the reason. Mint juleps are a hell of a drink.
Let's talk about Friday first. I really like Denim and Pearls in the 9th race. Yeah, that's one. She's definitely on my short list. Race 10 on Friday. There are 2 that I will probably use pretty equally. The number 4, Buku, and the number 9, Hard to Justify. Those would be 2 of my stronger opinions on there. On Saturday, I'll go head-to-head with JK in the 3-year-old sprint race. It's not really a sprint, it's a mile. In the Pate Mile. He loves Vlahos. I'm all about number 8, Top Connor, or Top Connor, I guess we were calling him last night. He's one that I'm very interested in. I'll give you a big price in race 9. This one isn't as likely a winner as the others we've talked about, but I'm confident the horse is going to be good value. Number 13, Can Group, is a horse that I like a lot. I will not be getting beaten by the number 5, Legend of Time, but I'm confident that number 13, Can Group, will be better value in that spot. And
Can Group has become a bit of a wise guy horse.
Really? You've heard?
I think so. Well, Philip
did pick.
And you, and that was unplanned.
Yeah. No, we did not. We never talk about this stuff before the shows. At this point, we've shown our hands a little bit because we've done enough talking about these races.
Him, but Philip, not so much.
Exactly. He was, and Philip comes up with some great stuff and some great long shots. He really saved my bacon last year with Web Slinger in the same race. So I'm very happy to be singing from the same hymn book as Philip on that one. And I'll throw out one more race where I have a pretty strong opinion that one of 2 horses is going to win in the 11th on Saturday. Naval Power the 11 runner, and also number 6, I'm Very Busy. I think one of those two will probably get it done. So these horses I'm mentioning, when I mentioned 2, the strategy would probably be more to mess around in doubles coming into and out of the race. If I like 2 and they're big enough prices, I will also do the old double win bet. But those are some of my favorite spots on these undercards.
Okay, well, let's stick with you then for the next question, Peter. We will roll on to the next question, which is, do you have a single in the 2-day pick 6?
I'm going to let Jonathan have the obvious. Do you have a non-obvious one, or should I let you have the obvious?
I mean,
one?
it's all the great ones. I mean, fierceness, I'm in a single.
Yeah. That's your obvious one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other great ones are tough. I mean,
Well, you would know that.
yeah, fierceness is probably the only one.
It's hard to go more than 2. You know, I mean, you can get cute, but I feel like generally they narrow down enough that I'm going to be able to play 2 or 3. Singling can be very important. It all depends on the sequence in the day. I think there are some people, though, who sort of start with, okay, who's the single? If there's not a single, if there's not 2 singles, I'm not going to play. I'm not really like that as much. I'm more interested in trying to, we'll use a phrase from our great friends, the Matisse brothers, Paul and Duke, who talk about being able to lock races up. If you can lock a race up with 2 or 3, meaning you have 80, in my view, lock it up is of 80% confidence or more that you're going to be able to get through the leg with that many runners. If you can lock up a few legs, I'll spend a little bit more money and not necessarily sweat having a single or more than 1 single. But if you made me say a single, it's the obvious one. It's fierceness.
We can be obvious. I don't mind being obvious.
And I will say this: the first leg of the 2-day pick 6 is race 5 tomorrow, the La Troyenne. It's a 7-horse field. You have Idiomatic, who's a champion, older horse, and the Breeders' Cup Distaff winner. Pretty mischievous. I don't know which one's which. You're the rider. Mischievous. She won the Kentucky Oaks last year. Those 2 horses are going to be overbet. And I think Jagera, the 6 horse, is extremely, extremely talented and has more upside, in my opinion, than those 2 horses. Like, we know who they are. I think she's just getting good. And if you can beat those 2 horses, singling Jagera in the first leg, you suddenly are sitting on a very, 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 very equitable ticket. And I think there's something to that. You single there, and for me, I'm singling fierceness. So if you single on the front leg, single on the back leg, you know, you're kind of cooking with gas.
I want to pause. Can I pause on that for a second, Vanessa?
I will allow that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There's 2 great points JK made there that I love singling in the first leg of a multi-race bet. I think a lot of people get in mind, hey, I want to stay alive. I do still think, even in this day and age with very efficient pools, there's a little bit of extra edge when you can go narrow with 1 horse early. But then also what you said, in a race where I think, boy, most horse players, most rank and file horse players are going to look at that race and say, oh, it's one of these 3. I'm going to use all 3. And that's a valid approach, you know, depending on what your opinion is elsewhere. But when you can say, the heck with that, I'm just going to stand alone with 1, you pick up outsized equity, and it's a way to make money in the long term. So I'm not brave enough to do it, but it's a smart idea.
Okay. I like that. I like that honesty from you. Mike would like some betting advice, and JK, I'm going to come to you first here. Next question is from Mike, and he's asked, I have a 6-to-1 shot. I want to single in multis. Do I bet the same amount to win on that horse?
I mean, I get, sure. It depends on what it's you know, when it comes to wagering, people always ask me all the time, like, what should I bet? Well, what's your goal? What's your goal, and what is your bankroll? Because that's and what's your opinion? Like, that tells you what to bet. Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you're singling a 6-to-1 shot and that horse wins, are you going to be upset about it? Like, if I singled a 6-to-1 shot and I lost, I could go to sleep at night and be okay with it. But if you're one of those people that's going to be like mad at yourself for weeks and be talking about it, you know, on your deathbed, then yeah, bet the horse to win.
I have a few of those.
I just think that
I know a few people like that.
It's what your goal is and what you're trying to accomplish. The answer lie there.
Yeah.
It's not. There's no right or wrong answer. You know, we joked about it earlier, talking. I'll bring it up again later. But there's no.
Well, I
no
think
right way.
why don't we just do it now? Because it rolls into the next question, doesn't it? Which is, how much of your bankroll would you allocate to vertical versus horizontal wagers this weekend? That's what you're referring to, right?
Yeah. What's your opinion? What's your goal? How much are you spending?
What's your wagering?
Yeah, like for me, I might take $1,000 and bet the pick 6 tomorrow and nothing else. That might not work for you. So I'm not the right person to ask, because it may be different than what
totally subjective.
So I think I made the joke today. If you drive from work to home and you know there's an accident on your main road, are you going to go the same way? No, you're going to go a different way. It's the same thing with betting. You can't go the same way to work every day. If there's an accident in the middle, you have to pivot and go a different direction.
That's the way he looks at it. What about you?
There's a lot to unpack in these last two questions. I mean, Jonathan's, holistically answer is, certainly undeniable that there's merit to what he's saying. But the idea of a 6-to-1 shot as your key in multiples, that to me sounds like it's probably the person's best bet of the day. And it gave me a chance to give a cheap plug to a book that came out today from a guy we both know and a big friend of In the Money Media from all the way back to the beginning, named Matt Miller. He has a book that's just out today called A Better Way of Thinking. And I'm going to give away a nugget. And, again, this comes down to your wagering personality. What's right for Matt isn't necessarily right for JK. And I think I'm a little bit more with Matt on this particular idea. But he espouses in the book that if a horse is your best bet of the day and that horse wins, there is no way you should lose money on the day. So with that in mind, that question of how much should I bet relative, maybe the answer is yes, or maybe at least cover your stake for what you're going to spend in the pick six. But again, if you're trying to hit home runs, if you're Jonathan and you're chasing that awesome memory of hitting 150,000, like whatever, if you make a few hundred betting at your 6-to-1 shot, or even a couple thousand betting a 6-to-1 shot, that's not going to fill the need that you're chasing a 6-figure score is. So maybe it doesn't work in that scenario. But for a lot of us more grindy types, I think there's something to that idea. And then as for that second question, horizontals versus verticals, hey, you're forgetting something important there. What about straight bets? What about win bets? What about just keeping it as simple as possible?
Which is what we do in Europe.
Exactly. You know all about this. The idea that you have to make everything so complicated is, in gambling, horse racing around the world terms, I think almost uniquely something of the American that I don't love. I would prefer to keep things simple. I think how you allocate horizontal versus vertical, once again, your wagering personality is going to come into play. Where your opinions are is going to come into play. But do not sleep on the simple win bets, double win bets, things like that. Your strike rate, how often you hit, is going to go up. You're going to, in my opinion, have a lot better days if you can mix in some straight wagers along with those other two. You and I are both more horizontally oriented. And sometimes I think it's to a fault with me. I'll have good opinions about a long shot to run underneath, and I'll be betting a pick 3. And so, I can be right and not get paid. That's something I need to maybe work on myself. But that's just wagering personality. I'm not saying, it's better to bet horizontal. It's just the way my brain works.
Yeah. Each their own, different strokes, different folks, as we would say back at home.
That's it.
Let's move on. Give me 5 horses for a show parlay this weekend.
Oh, I love this question.
Have you done your research on this?
I haven't, but I can do it on the fly.
Okay,
it's gonna probably repeat a little bit of some of those horses we mentioned before. So and what I'll do, because I'll stallify, but while I'm stallifying, I'll also tell you something that I think is important, that the show parlay horse can be a different type of horse than the horse you're going to use in the pick 3. Obviously, they only have to hit in the top 3. And so I'm looking more and rewarding more consistency than anything else. I'm loving a race where there's a favorite I don't like, because your show payout's going to go up if a favorite does not run in the money. But this is a strategy that, speaking of book plugs, the last horse racing book I worked on before the Matt Miller book was with Mike Maloney. And this is something he and his dad, Bud, would do on these big days, because there's so much money in the pools. They would have almost like a separate fund, like a mutual fund almost, compared to their the stock market of their playing, other things, where looking for 5 or 6 horses across the weekend that they felt like they could rely on. So with that in mind, Denim and Pearls is gonna hit the board in race 9. I'm gonna definitely mention that one. The 10th race, I'm not as confident. The 11th race, the Oaks, the big one tomorrow, I think Ways and Means is an interesting show parlay horse, actually. The problem is, if she doesn't win, it might be because she doesn't see out the distance. So I'm going to spin, and I'm going to say, just FYI, I am extremely confident that she will at least run in the top 3.
Okay, so far your man's asked for 5, and you've given him 2.
Yeah, but it was across the weekend. I still have Derby Day.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
so then we'll go.
I'm being tough on you.
No, I appreciate that. It's out of love, I think. So Top Connor, my guy, I'm very happy with him in there. I think he's a very interesting show parlay horse. Legend of Time, I think, even though I'm picking Can Group and I have some questions about Legend of Time, he ain't gonna run out of the top 3, is he? I like the idea of him in there.
All 3 of you had him in the top 3 last night.
And then, back to, if we'll give 2 more. Naval Power is another horse I'm pretty sure is going to run in the money. And then, but here's the funny thing. I wouldn't do Fierceness in a show parlay. And there's another question about this.
He's a boom or bust. He's a boom or bust.
Exactly. Like
he's
your
back
man.
of the net or the ball's gone off the pitch.
Exactly. And if you don't know what that means, we can translate her English to American later. But the horse, if you made me pick a horse to for a show parlay in the Kentucky Derby, it's kind of interesting. I might go with Catching Freedom, actually, who's a horse that, I don't even necessarily have as an A-level. I do not have as an A-level contender to win the race, but I'm super confident he's going to run well and fire. I think he might be the one for a show parlay in the Derby. There you go. I gave you 6.
You did? Yeah, fair play. Do you want to add anyone into the mix, or should we move on to the next question?
No, I think in the La Troyenne, I think Chigurh is interesting, right? Because if one of those top 2 runs out, you can kind of get paid a little bit. I think she's going to run her race. In the Modesty, I like Aspen Grove to get a piece, and she's a nice price. She's 6-1. And the Oaks, I would use Just FYI as well. And then on Saturday, in the Turf Sprint, Big Invasion. Trust me, I've been I've bet him to win 100 times. He always hits the board, but he never wins.
You had to bring that up.
I think he'll hit the board. And then in the Derby, I disagree. I think that there's a lot of value in there where people are like, there's so many people that are going to bet win, play, show on horses that have 0 chance, dumb horses that have no chance. So there's a lot of dead money in the show pool.
Yeah,
I would bet Fierceness to hit the board. I think he'll hit the board. Even if I hear the idea of win or run out, but I'm so confident he's going to run well. Like him not running 2nd or 3rd, even if someone freaks, to me is like impossible.
I have a fact to back up Jonathan's idea, even though I don't. In the 2020 Derby, when you had a very heavy favorite in Tis the Law, had he won, was going to pay more to place and a ridiculously high price to show, even though he was absolutely crushed in the win pool. So that dynamic exists. For me, Fierce is just not necessarily the horse for it, but I hear and take that point.
Well, that links us nicely what JK was just saying onto our next question, which is there a long shot you'll be using to hit the board in the Kentucky Oaks? And Pete, I'm going to come to you first here. You've already mentioned a couple that you're interested in terms of a win position, but what about something at a bigger price to fill the frame?
Yeah, it's always fun to try to come up with those kind of horses and see if you can pair with your logicals something at a bit more of a price.
When I was listening to the boys on one of the sort of early Oaks preview shows, and there's a lot of, as you guys would call, kind of dead wood in there, horses that you guys are very happy to pass over in terms of any finishing position. So that kind of almost narrows the field down, right? Makes your job easier.
Absolutely. And there's one that I think, I don't know what she's going to be bet to be, but one that I keep coming back to in my mind as a filly who could step up in there is Regulatory Risk. This one comes out of the Gazelle, which I didn't think was the strongest of the prep races, but she really improved a lot, I thought, into that race. And she's just on a trajectory where she's going to need to step up again to get in the mix with the top 5, but she's in the right hands to do so. And I just think she could be an outsized price. So I'm a little bit interested for an Oaks long shot in Regulatory Risk. Otherwise, my opinion there's boring. I think the favorites are so strong.
I love that profile of that sort of stepping forward horse, hasn't finished her progression yet, the upward trajectory as you talk about. I love that angle in. Do you have a long shot Oaks hope?
Yeah, I think that there's 2 horses that are interesting. I think Into Champagne is interesting. Ian Wilkes is just traditionally a trainer that his horses continue to improve. And this horse has run better and better in every start, from the debut to the 2nd start, to the 3rd start, to the 4th start, forwardly placed, which in dirt racing, I'd rather you be forward than back. There's a lot more bad things that could happen. The analogy in football is when you're running the football, there's only a couple of bad things that could happen. When you throw it, there's a lot. So I like Into Champagne to improve a little bit. And then Power Squeeze, who's undefeated around a mile or longer. And I think that, she'll be a big price. She's 12-1. So I think one of those two horses is interesting to hit the board.
Okay. I'm going to stick with you, JK, for the next question as we roll on, because we've kind of already covered it in a sense, but Ed has sent a question in here. One of my favorite bets is the Oaks Derby double. How do you approach this wager?
People are going to probably get annoyed at me for doing this, but I'm just being honest. It's the honest to God truth. I don't know. Who do you like? Who do you like, and what's your goal? Do you like fierceness? If you like fierceness, do you like just FYI? You love just FYI? You love fierceness? Then ice cold, $200 double. Shoot for that. Do you not like fierceness? Then you got to spread a little bit. Do you like it? Just the best answer is, which is an answer that I always give people when they say, "What do I do in contests?" Well, what do I do? Play what you like. Whatever you like, then you bet that the way that you like it. There's the approach. The wrong thing to do is to come up with a steadfast rule and to continue to follow it. That's the wrong thing.
Loads of people this year are going to latch on to the champion 2-year-old filly, champion 2-year-old colt double in just FYI fierceness. Do you think that is that the way you're going to play it then, given what you've just said? Yeah,
I'm going to go. What I would say is, again, I like Jonathan's point, that one size does not fit all. You really this is another Mike Maloney betting with an edge thing, that the best bets are essentially mathematical constructions of your opinion in a ticket form. And that is a key approach. But one thing I will say about a bet like the Oaks Derby double, I would avoid overspreading. Look, if you want to go with long shots, if you want to play a cluster of long shots and a cluster of long shots and go 5x5, it's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but I'm going to feel a lot better. If you looked in my life at my win percentage and ROI in a bet like the Oaks Derby double, I'm going to take a wild guess that the fewer combinations I'm playing, the more my return on investment is going to go up. Is that true for you?
Yeah. The problem is that people look, I used to do it, and sometimes it creeps in. People are scared to lose, and so they play defensively. As in, my favorite statement is stuff like, "Oh, I can't let Chad Brown beat me on the turf." Right. But why not? Do you like the horse? You don't like the horse, so why can't you let Chad Brown beat you on the turf? And people, so then they use. I mean, I have a friend who's a smart guy, and it doesn't matter if Chad's got horses in a turf race, he uses all of them. It's the dumbest approach possible. Play what you like. If you don't like those horses, then let them beat you. But wasting that equity on them is only taking away from what you could make when you are right.
Yeah, that's a great point. That playing from a place of fear and not wanting to be wrong.
Not the right.
It's not a winning. I mean, look, if you're just there and you're having fun and you're messing around and you're going to kick yourself or whatever, like that's fine, but that's not a winning attitude.
If you're there to have fun, just bet the show.
Let's move on. We've got a bit of a left field question coming up next from John. You can field this, I think, Pete.
Please.
With the renewed emphasis on horse safety, would you support limiting the Derby field to 14 versus the current 20?
I'll go first. No.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't see any data to support the idea that 14 is safer. If there was data about that, I wouldn't rule it out of hand if there was data, but it sounds like a guess and a narrative, right?
Yeah, they're four-legged animals running in a circle that are 1,000 pounds with small legs, and sometimes things happen whether there's 4 horses in a race. They're standing there by themselves. I understand we should do everything we can in terms of safety, but doing things that are throwaway that sound like they're a good idea.
Performative safety.
Yeah, well, it's not. It's that as well as kind of. It's just how it looks, isn't it? It's how it looks to the public eye. Does 14 look a bit less hectic than 20? But we shouldn't be changing the race just to please.
I'm thinking like, those turf races that have 14 in them, where they're bunched up in during the first turn. Yeah. No.
Okay, it's a no then. On we go. Peter, what prop bets do you wish existed for the Kentucky Derby?
Oh, it's such a great question. And there's one later about a specific prop bet
that's
kind of hilarious.
I've seen that.
I'll leave that one alone. We'll get there. But for me, I love head-to-head bets. I wish there were more just opportunities to say, okay, who's going to be, and here's another one that ties into a question that's coming up. It would be so fun to bet on a horse that was on the lead at the half mile. it would be so fun to be able to bet on the well, I'll give it away, but we'll talk about it later. The horse to finish last. But just generally speaking, Catching Freedom against Forever Young head to head. How fun would that be if we could have it? And I'll soapbox for 2 minutes, 2 seconds really.
2 seconds.
And just say, I wish we had fixed odds bets for those type of things. Look, I don't want to replace parimutuel wagering. I love it. I think it's great. I don't think it's going anywhere. But if we want to enfranchise and bring in this massive sports betting audience, and if we want to get horse racing on those apps to fill in all the gaps and at every halftime for college football, etc., we need simple, fun, fixed odds bets for people to bet on horse racing. And it will not hurt the parimutuel pools. It will help them because it's going to make so many more fans.
Tim with his little soapbox.
No, I'm going to stand up there with him. I think that if you think about it like this, we make this silly comparison about this boom in sports betting and how it's supposed to help horse racing and they're supposed to come, in a Sunday in February when the Super Bowl happens, you can bet on the Chiefs -7, or you can bet on the Patriots +7. There's 2 sides to that. But what we're asking people to do, and if they were going to bet the Super Bowl, is to bet the Chiefs -7, -10, -14, -21, and then pick the right one. It's just so much harder because we have 14 choices. But if you could set it up where it is a coin flip for people, essentially, that's what the spread is.
That's what
sports
spreads do.
Is to make it a coin flip. Now people can have some fun. They can enjoy it. They can win, and they can come back and play again. But we don't do that. We make it complicated. I would like. I love stuff like Chad Brown versus Brad Cox.
Yep.
Who's gonna win? I think that's fun. Or who's gonna whatever. I think there's who's gonna finish higher, Jose or Irad? Fun.
Human prop bets. That's a super fun idea. Even odd. What about that? Just for you're going to the Derby and you get something close to 50-50 on an even odd prop bet. Like something like that would be fun. There's no end to the fun we could have if racing can open their mind a little bit and try to enfranchise some of these people. The growth opportunity is tremendous. I worry we're letting it sail right by us.
Okay, but let's move on.
Yep.
Obviously links the previous question, but we move on to the next. There is a market for horse to finish last. Who do you bet? Pete, you can go first there.
I would bet one of the other speed horses that isn't Fierceness. So I'm actually going to bet on, to me, one of the horses that is probably one of the top 5 fastest horses in the race under ideal circumstances, but I worry is going to go out there and try to run on the lead with Fierceness and potentially get his heart broken. Also, because maybe he doesn't quite want to run the 1.25 miles and is going to win a lot of big races when turned back to a mile or shorter. Track Phantom is a horse that's a really good horse that if this market existed, I think you could get a really good price on, that I think it just has a terrible situation to set himself up.
That's so funny.
Who do you think
is that who you're going to pick?
No, but those people that just left, they all had Track Phantom hats on.
They
left at the perfect time.
Was it something I said?
I actually saw that.
Yeah, they all did.
I missed it completely. Oblivious up here.
I think Dorna. Yeah, I mean, I love Randy Hill, and I think I'm actually going to dinner with Jason Worth tomorrow night, so I feel bad for saying that. But
it's the same deal, though.
But
right?
he's on the
horse.
rail. He has to send away from there, and he's going to have to be aggressive from down there. He could win. You know what I mean? Like in that situation, but he's more likely, because I believe in Fierceness, that he'll get looked in the eyes and he'll have used too much to get that position, and it could be tricky for him. Now, look, I mean, the obvious was like, I don't know, TO password maybe.
Yeah, well,
but
he also might show speed and get.
Don't know who he is. I don't know who he is.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Keeping with the Kentucky Derby theme, of course. What Kentucky Derby horse has the best works leading up to Saturday? From Andy. Pete?
I'm not a.
You focusing in on this?
No, I love the question, but I'm not somebody who typically, like JK, you and I, I love looking at horses. I like watching works and stuff, but I don't usually push that opinion, right?
Well, this is
what did I text you when I saw Fierceness work the other day?
Yeah, they worked well.
I was basically like, holy crap, look at this horse.
Yeah, my bandstanding about that would be someone else's opinion, so I don't feel like it's not my
What have
opinion.
you heard?
I thought Fierceness looked good when he galloped out away from Agate Road. It looked pretty special to me. But if I got 4 legs and a tail, then I'm like, oh, that's a horse. So I don't. I'm more of a paper guy.
Well, we spoke about it last night, though, didn't we, on the Final Answers show? That you can read too much into those morning works a little bit, and
especially if you don't know.
horses in the past.
Especially if you don't know who they are. If you don't know what they do all the time, then I don't know. Maybe Fierceness has always been an amazing workhorse, and you still run like crap a couple times.
Right.
So
because I do find it funny that we kind of become obsessed with the morning works in and around a Kentucky Derby at Oaks, around a Breeders' Cup, but all the other Grade 1s, Group 1s throughout the year, we have no idea what they're doing.
But I will say this, though. The Derby is pretty notorious for best work run well.
Really?
Animal Kingdom, American Pharaoh, Orb, Rachel Alexandra. She was in the Oaks, but she one of the most devastating performances ever at Churchill Downs. Barbaro. They were all the horse
work that everybody talked about.
The best.
And that's Fierceness this week.
Okay.
Can I share one more tidbit for the audience? I'll pass it along. We'll give another shout out to our man, Duke Matisse, who did the Pro Player Roundtable with us. If you're a real down the rabbit hole racing fan, this is a show you should listen to. It's 2 hours, but it's two professional players basically having the conversation they would have off air about these races. Duke shared that according to his info, domestic product had been working particularly well. He's going to be a big price. I thought that was interesting.
I mean, I think it just visually, if you look at it, some might think that he outworked Sierra Leone. Just they work together, and so yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, let's move on. We've still got quite a few questions to get through. Who has the lead going into the first turn of the Derby? I think this is a fascinating question.
Oh, it's so hard because it could go so many different ways. I'm going to say Teo Password. I'm going to say they dead send him. That's why they're here to get a call. I think from watching the tape, he's probably fast enough. We've seen this with foreign horses before in the Derby where they come and they're not afraid to be aggressive. I don't think you're going to be there at the end, but that's what I'll throw out. And I'll leave you the one of the obvious answers. I
think Fierceness.
Yeah.
I think that Todd is one of three Hall of Fame and future Hall of Fame trainers. Todd, Brad Cox, future Hall of Famer, Todd Hall of Famer, and Bob Baffert Hall of Famer, who when they have a fast horse, they don't get in their way. And I think Johnny has been on enough good horses to know when he's sitting on a good one. I think they learned something about him. He gets brave on the front end, and I don't see why they're going to get cute and try to rate him off of a horse. If he breaks cleanly, they send him away to get position, and he's there. I think Johnny will then let him advance. And
you're not going to disappoint him by taking him back. And
if he were to grab and pull him back, I would throw him.
Yeah, I think they'll let him clip around there.
Yeah. Okay.
And even in my Teo Password situation, I see him going way too fast and Johnny basically being in the lead and pretending that horse isn't even in the race because he basically isn't.
Okay, let's roll on then. Long shot most likely to hit the board in the Kentucky Derby. One of the favorites to finish off the board from Carl. So 2 questions in there. A long shot to hit the board, Pete.
I got to stick with, and I hope he is a long shot. Gosh, boy, there's been so much wise guy chatter about Honor Marie. But yeah, I really like the fact that, we have firsthand knowledge from our clocker friend at Fairgrounds. He was unfit when he came back. He stepped up and ran a lot better second time. I think he's going to get a good trip, and I'm hoping he's still going to be 15 or 20 to 1. I will say something controversial about another horse I really like for my favorite to run out, and you disagree with this. I hate this draw for Sierra Leone. I just worry he's going to get too far back, and I could see a scenario where he just gets a bad trip and ends up being, running his race, but running fourth. And that's not on the board. So I'll throw him out there as a horse who's going to take a ton of money, who, can win the race if everything goes his way. Yeah. But I'll say I don't think he has to hit the board.
Okay, what about you?
Domestic product. We talked about it. I think that race at Tampa, I think it was hard to make a figure, so it's a little bit light. He was closing in a slow pace. He gets Irad, Chad. The horse worked well last time with Sierra Leone. I think he could. He's the long shot I like.
Okay.
Who's off the board?
Oh,
bad
off the board.
Yeah.
Off the board of the bad horse.
Sierra Leone.
No, he likes
Forever Young.
Ooh, good. That's also a good answer. Yeah.
Okay. Pete, next question. What is your guess for the $1 trifecta and superfecta payout in the Derby?
Oh, I'm hideous at this game. We need Eric. Where's Eric Bialik when we need him? Hopefully he's watching at home. Our friend Eric is a young, exciting horse player. He's had some great success in the game. And when we have math questions, usually we'll just one of us will say to the other one of us when a math question comes up, well, somebody's got to call Eric. Who's going to ask Eric the favor this time to figure this out? I'm just hideous at this game. I don't think they'll be crazy because I like fierceness so much to win, but I would just be like making up a number with. I should have prepped for this, and that's how I would have to answer this. I would look at what do I think the most comparable one was. I'd look at Faro. I'd look at Justify, and yeah, I got nothing.
My computer's moving slow. Didn't Eric send us that? Are there super high five averages?
Those were super high five averages. There were some other info in there that if you could pull up.
It's loading, but it's just going to load slow. I mean, the super high five, the lowest payout in the last 10 years has been $6,000, and the highest has been like $600,000.
And it's very inefficient.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. I mean, I'm bad at this game too. I think fierceness is going to win. The super average over the last 10 years is $50,000 for $1.
Okay, what about
the low is like 542 and the high is 321.
Did he give you a try the tries in there too?
Trifecta average is 4,000.
Okay.
For $1.
Well, Eric did come through, even though
Come on, Eric. Well
shout out Eric Bialik.
Well done, that guy, man. Pete, next question. If I think this is from Larry, if I think fierceness is a lock on top and want to use 6 horses underneath, how do you recommend structuring tickets for trifectas and superfectas?
I much prefer double keys to boxes. So what I would, in other words, I would pick, and you could even use 2 horses as the secondary key. But the idea would be you just lock fierceness on top, contenders. What he said? Super? No, tries and supers.
Yeah.
So we'll just talk about the try because it's easier, and then you can extrapolate the super from there. It would be something on the order of fierceness, the 6 horses you like the best, which we can roll through what we think those are, and then maybe 2 horses that have to run third. And for me, for that third spot, it would probably be a Sierra Leone, and it would be some combination of Sierra Leone, Catching Freedom, and Honor Marie, closers to come past those tired speed horses whose hearts have been broken by fierceness's massive move at some point in the race.
Would you play it similar?
Yeah, you can do it that way. I mean, that's definitely a way to do it. It's the more efficient way to do it. But you can also, if that math is blowing your mind, you can also just go single by 6 by 6, and the math on that is $30 for $1.
Yeah, it's not hideous.
And then I guess if you're doing the super, it's 6 times 5 times 4, which I'm not 120.
You can do that.
JK tries math fail. And so like I mean, those are the ways you can do it. Those are the ways. Once upon a time, I did like an 8-horse superfecta box with like a group of people for fun.
Was that your dad's bet?
Someone he knew did it.
Okay.
And like it's. Even if the favorite wins, you probably don't win money, but I think it's like $1,600 wager.
It's crazy, but it's fun.
Yeah, but it's the average is 50,000. So
right.
If you can hit it,
instead of buying your lottery tickets for a year, maybe you do that. I will say, let's plug. I'm the cheap plug guy tonight, but we do have this whole video about the super high five that you can find elsewhere on YouTube, and there are some serious inefficiencies in that pool. I would actually say rather than tackle the 8-horse box super, if you're up for it, take a look at some slightly more advanced strategies to play the super high five, because that I think is your best bet to make one wager that could be, under $500 that could legitimately give you a chance to win $100,000.
And we all love that. Pete, next question. And I think we've kind of covered it in some ways, but you can summarize again. I think fierceness either wins or runs out, which I think
that's how
lots of people are in agreement with. But how do I bet that opinion?
That's a great question. And what I would do is allocate, again, you could spend an hour on this question, but the short answer is you bet some sets of tickets where he just wins. You allocate maybe 50% of your money where he just wins. For me, it would be more than that. For me, it would probably be 80% of the money where he wins, and then have 20% worth of savers with the horses that I think have a realistic chance to win, that are going to be, especially ones that are going to be decent prices. So like I might have another small set of tickets in, we'll just use the pick six as an example, where, you know, let's say I bet $1,000 in the pick six, 800 of it, maybe 850 are all single to fierceness. But then I have just my favorite horse in every other leg of the pick six to Honor Marie and Domestic Product and horses like that, who I'd love to be alive for a proper score.
Do you want to add anything into that in terms of the boom or bust factor?
Yeah, I'm not a big Forever Young. I mean, I understand a little bit of it. I think he's a talented horse, but I've always said that a Japanese horse or a foreign horse will win this race when we don't have a special horse.
Jonathan jumped ahead.
But we have a special. Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I was reading.
This was the winner.
You were reading my next question. So sorry, we will roll on.
Sorry,
we will roll on to the next question, which is obviously he's jumped ahead, so he's given a sneak preview here. But the next question is: there are conflicting figures on Forever Young, the Japanese horse, TFUS versus Thoroughgraph. What's your take from Alex H? So it's very tricky with the international runners, isn't it? Like we've obviously got with you, have international experts on In the Money Media to help you out here, but it is tricky with these different figures. Who wants to take this?
I'll take this one. And I love that you say H. That doesn't exist in America either. It's H. There's no H. There's no H.
Sorry.
I kid. I'm hoping this is our friend Alex Henry, who did such a great job for us on the pedigree video and is a real Japanese.
I thought it was Alex Hammond from Sky.
It could be our friend Alex. She's wonderful also. But Alex Henry, this woman is amazing. She learned Japanese so she could play a video game. Okay. Which one is it? What's the big Japanese? Is it Gallop Racer? Or no, that's American. Or anyway,
no idea what you're talking about.
I'm dead serious. She taught herself how to read Japanese so she could play, and she is a huge Japanese racing fan. So love Timeform US. Love Timeform US. Think Japanese. Think all the foreign figures are too low. Basically, no good for you. If you try to A/B figures of horses running from Europe that turn up in Timeform US,
really,
they're no good. I don't know why. There must be some sort of weird translation error. Like that's how bad they are.
Wow.
The Thoroughgraph number on this horse has him running in the high 90s, but I'll also say that Randy Moss from the Buyer Speed Figure team did figures for his races in the Middle East and had him running a 101 in the Saudi race and a wide throughout 95 in the Dubai race. That's more like 100. I actually don't know what he ran on Timeform US, but I'm going to guess because they're always too low on international shippers that it was lower than that. But I would go with what Randy said, which is going to be, if you make me pick Thoroughgraph or Timeform US, I'm going to say go with Thoroughgraph. But we have Randy's info, so why do we even need that?
Fair. Anything to add to that?
No, I kind of already like. I mean, look, yeah, sure, he can, maybe, but it's hard for me to get warm to him when I think there's a special horse in the race. That's all.
Yeah, fair. So come on. Last question, guys. If you were alive to your top pick for a big score in a multi-race wager leading into the Derby. Sorry.
Where's the jar? We left the jar at home. That's your second one. You owe the charities for the Derby-thon £40 now.
40. How do you hedge? From Matt M. Do you know who Matt M is?
It sounds like Matt Miller, but Matt Miller would never ask this question of us, so it must be from somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Matt Miller wouldn't ask this question because remember the expression we had an expression that we used to use about this privately that we then cleaned up a little bit for the airwaves. You want to start with that?
Well, the man who said it to me originally is passed, so it's taken a little bit of a bigger meaning. Well, basically, when I was a high school football coach and I was making a teacher's salary, and I was alive in a pick four at Belmont Park to win anywhere from $40,000 to $120,000, which was basically like
2014 Belmont Stakes Day. Was it?
2014.
The day we met in person,
which was essentially equal to my salary. And I was alive to 4 horses, and I did not have the favorite. And I called this guy who was like my mentor, Haas. I called Haas, and I said, "Hey, Haas, what do I do? Do I hedge? Do I bet Icebox? Was the horse I didn't have covered?" And he said to me, "Did you like him this morning when you woke up?" And I said, "No." He said, "Then grab your nuts, son." And I didn't hedge, and I haven't hedged really ever since then.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a
And
real life.
And I hit for 84,000. But
That's a
if you
real life
didn't-
answer.
And he made me pick up the check that night. I mean, that's the worst part of the story.
If you didn't like the horse,
Peter Luger too.
if you didn't like the horse in the morning, you didn't like the horse when you made the wager.
That is
You
the
know,
head
now
to-
listen, if you have an outside score, you know, if you're alive to 500,000, you're single to fierceness, and you're really scared of Sierra Leone, and your budget restraints prevented you from using Sierra Leone as well, sure, get you a little something. But what you don't want to happen, the worst thing that happens is when you try to hedge and you lose again, and it all goes down. Where you were supposed to make 100,000, but instead you lost an extra 2,000 trying to hedge. You got to be, if you're going to hedge, you got to be able to lock up a return. I don't think you need to take another wager. You need to lock up a return.
Or I love what you said. It reminded me of a time we played the pick six when I was living in England. Actually, it was 2015. We were in the flat in Islington. I stayed up late one night, and we were playing a pick six at Santa Anita. I don't know if there was a carryover or what, but we had tickets. We love to play multi-race bets with a lot of different tickets, and you have sort of your main horses and your backup horses. So to be alive to your backup horse in the last race, it needs to go a certain way. But we were out of backups. Two of our backups had already won. So we got to the last race, and we were alive to our main horse, or maybe it was even main horses for a score. And we had one B horse, one backup horse that we didn't have covered. And we were like, the heck with it. Why don't we liked this horse. We wanted him as a backup. It made sense to bet 1,000 or whatever it was on him to at least turn it into a nice winning day. Still stings a little. Obviously, we didn't make anywhere near as much as if we'd been alive to the pick six, but that horse ended up winning. Wish I could remember the name of the horse. I think it was Bayern. This is so weird. My memory isn't usually this good. I'm channeling my inner Nick Tamaro here. It was Bayern. I think it was Bayern's last race. And it was a horse that, just some improving horse that we didn't end up having on the ticket. And anyway, saved our bacon. But Haas's question was the right question. Did we like that horse when we woke up that morning? Yeah, we did like him, just not enough to make him an A. So then it makes sense to hedge. But yeah, reflexive hedging for me is a good way to just lose more money. It's like we talked about before. It's playing from a place of fear. What's the old great saying in horse racing? Scared money never wins.
Like that as a parting comment. I like that. Guys, that about wraps it up, I think, unless you have anything else you'd like to add. Essentially, we're all aboard the fierceness train. That's what we've established here. Anything else?
Well, I want to thank Lance and the team at the Galt House for making this a wonderful weekend. Yes.
Point everyone in the direction of all the good content you've been doing. So obviously on the fly over here, I was listening to these boys pretty continuously for approximately 12 hours. There is so much good Derby Day content and Oaks Day content out there, and loads of it is on the In the Money Media platform. So as your sign off, you can do a plug towards
I love
that
it
because there's a lot there.
InTheMoneyPodcast.com. That's the website. That has a lot of great stuff. But I would say subscribing to the In the Money Media channel.
You don't miss it then. You don't miss it.
Yeah, you'll click that notification bell. You won't miss an episode. You'll get to see some really cool thumbnails designed by this man right here. He's basically like a poor man's Mr. Beast if he were a complete degenerate. That's what we got sitting there at the end of the at the end of the table. Please do that. We have a free newsletter, InTheMoneyPodcast.com/email. That's the place to go to sign up for that. We're sending out special newsletters, again, just with all the Derby content. And if you want to go above and beyond, In the Money Plus, it's not a tout service or anything like that. It's extra content. There's some really great extra shows on that. You get notes, digests of all the picks from the shows. The idea behind it was to raise some money to help the people who provide free content, give us a chance to pay people who provide free content all year long, not just Derby weekend. So we encourage you to check that out as well.
Is it goodbye and good luck?
You want to sign off? You want me to sign off? You want him to sign off? Should we
No,
make him do
well,
it?
I want you to sign off because
Okay.
if you don't do the proper sign off, I feel like we won't have
Bad
a lucky
luck?
weekend.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good. Well, in that case, thank you, Vanessa. It's been such a great pleasure having you here for some of the most important shows we do all year. You're like my security blanket. I get to just spout off at the mouth, and you do the hard work of keeping the ball in the air. To Jonathan, been an incredible business partner over these last few years. And, I really think we built something special here. We'll thank him. We'll thank Lance and the AV team and everybody here at the Galt House for being such great hosts We look forward to these next 2 days. We hope you do as well. May you win all your Kentucky Oaks and Derby photos.